First Amendment. My amendment would strike an especially harsh provision in this bill that is rooted in cruelty, not policy. This simple, straightforward amendment would strike the work requirement provision in this big, bad, ugly bill that lowers the age of what we call a dependent child from 18 to 7. From 18 years old to 7 years old. So I'm abundantly clear, we're saying that 8, 9, and 10-year-olds are no longer considered dependent children. Where did this come from? Why is this necessary? Since when is a first grader not a dependent child? Preventing families with children as young as 7 from losing food assistance, that is what we're debating here.
If you don't think that something is wrong with the shit that I'm about to show you, then something is wrong with you. So they're saying that they lowered the age of dependence from 18 to the age of 7. You heard what I just said? They lowered the age of dependence from the age of 18 to the age of 7. So they're saying right now that your 7-year-old is responsible enough to take care of a household. Oh, you think I'm playing? Look at this shit. Listen to this shit right here.
From 18 to 7.
7.
Listen.
So now, if you have an 8-year-old child, it is the belief of this administration that that child is self-sufficient and could work and support the family.
Trump passed this new bill to where single parents with like children under the age of 7 won't qualify for benefits if they get into a hardship, which everybody gets into a hardship right now in this economy. But he's singling out single parents, but he's not singling out the absent parent. Trump really needs to make some of these laws go to the absent parent, because most of the time we didn't choose to be a single parent. We got forced to be a single parent. And the absent parent, nothing ever happened to them motherfuckers. Nothing. How many motherfuckers is back on child? My baby daddy is probably over 60, 70, 80 grand.
Boy. So we got to talk about the latest freak out from a certain demographic that apparently can't read, okay, when it comes to some proposals in the GOP's big, beautiful bill, which currently is being negotiated in the Senate, right? I think the House passed their version of the bill. Now the Senate is going to make their changes, and we're going to go from there, right? We're going to see exactly what happens. But you have people freaking out about this proposal in the bill that would lower the age of dependence from 18 to 17 years old. Now, again, because these people don't read, they don't research, they don't understand that this doesn't apply across the board, okay? It actually really only applies to food stamps, and specifically when it comes to work requirements for food stamps, right? Like, for example, currently, parents with dependent children under 18 are exempt from SNAP's work requirements, aka if you are a parent and you have dependent children under the age of 18, okay, you are exempt from SNAP work requirements, which means that you don't have to prove that you're working or that you're finding a job or whatever, right? Because you have dependent children under the age of 18 in order to get food stamps, okay? The proposed legislation would lower this exemption age to 7. This means that parents with children age 7 and above would be subject to work requirements to qualify for SNAP benefits, whereas previously the exemption applied to those with children under 18. Yeah, so this legislation would change that and say, hey, hold on now. If you have children above the age of 7, then as a parent, in order to receive food stamps, right, food assistance, government money, you need to work, right? And apparently, somehow, some way, this has been interpreted as President Trump wanting children to work, right? Or wanting children at the age of, 7, 8, 9 years old to get jobs, right? This is how it's been interpreted by a certain demographic on TikTok, and they're losing their minds, and this is going viral. Just like the proposed cuts to Section 8 housing. It seems there's a certain demographic that is really, really, really worried about the Trump administration cutting off the welfare. Take a look.
Trump is changing the dependent age from 18 to 7. So I just need to know in August, are we sending them back to school or are we sending them to work? Because if the dependent age is now 7, you trying to say they dependent. If I'm not mistaken, back in the day, they used to work at that age, right? So is he trying to tell us that they need to go back to work? Because I don't think Trump know that these kids ain't regular kids. These kids will flip out if they ain't got they tablets. Now, is we putting them in IT? Is we teaching them kids how to code? They might like that. They might like that. We're going to have to figure out them some jobs because they ain't going to do regular jobs. They barely listen to them teachers. Like, these employers is about to catch hell. They going to be babysitters. And don't put me at the same company as my kids. I don't want to work with them. I already got to be with them at home. Like, y'all done already took them out of school, so now y'all want them to work, and then don't put them as the same company as me. Like, this ain't gonna work. This ain't gonna work. Like, and how much is you paying these kids? Because if you my 7-year-old he needs to get paid well. He can't work for pennies, so that ain't gonna work either. Then you can't even disrespect that kids. Because now they got to leave their job to go to this job. They're going to probably, oh my Lord, Trump ain't thinking this out. He ain't thinking this out clearly. And then the big families is definitely going to get the most, like, to hit the most. Like them single parents, they got like 8, 9, 10 kids. They going to feel it the most.
So the Republican Party in Congress are trying to change the age of a dependent to the age of 7. They want to classify anyone over the age of 7 as independent to save a few dollars in the SNAP program. So let me get this straight. Your new pint-sized independent is probably still in a booster seat. Your new pint-sized independent cannot cook dinner for him or herself. Hell, in 13 states, you will go to jail if you leave your pint-sized new independent home alone. Hell, I guess in a minute they're going to change the new pint-sized independent minimum.
Oh, and something a lot of people aren't aware of because they can't read and, whatever. The big, beautiful bill changes the age of dependence from 18 to 7. So you folks that get a big old check at the end of the year, income tax return for all of your dependents, they're over 7, no more. You can't claim them on your taxes. You can't claim them when you get benefits like SNAP. You can't. So how you?
Trump literally just said that if you over the age of 7 years old, you are no longer dependent. That 7-year-olds can go and work a job as if they were an adult. He's literally treating any child over 7 years old like an adult. And it's crazy because America is literally watching it happen. That means your 7-year-old is considered an adult. That 7-year-old, after the age of 7, they are no longer dependent on their parents. And the majority of the reason why he's doing this is because he said that over the age of 7 can no longer be claimed on food stamps. That if your child is over the age of 7, everybody know that the black families or whatever community, the white families, whoever's on food stamps, everybody knows that you get more food stamps per child. But Trump is literally saying that after 7 years old, you can no longer claim a child anywhere as a dependent, which is crazy. That means a 7-year-old can go and work the same job the parent works. It's so crazy, huh?
Yeah, so you're saying that, you heard that. Okay, absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. One, because again, these people are ignorant, right? A quick Google search, okay? Basically, you can use AI, right? There's so many resources out there for people to look this up themselves and to see exactly what the proposal is. Again, nothing is finalized, but the proposal is essentially that, if you have a child over the age of 7, you're going to have to be required to work in order to get food stamps, right? There needs to be work required, okay? If you are a able-bodied adult, as in you actually can work, right? You can get a job. You're going to have to get a job if you want to receive food stamps if you have a child over the age of 7 years old. Now, if you have a child under the age of 7, right, a dependent under the age of 7, then, yeah, you don't have those work requirements. So essentially all this is doing is that it's not requiring kids to work, which is the way that these people have interpreted. Oh, Trump is making kids work, right? And it's like, no, that's not what this is. What this is Trump is making parents work, right? Parents need to go to work if you want food stamps, right? If you want food stamps, you have to work. You have to at least show that you're trying to get a job, right? There has to be work requirements, which I 100% agree with. 100% agree with. I don't understand what is so controversial about making able-bodied adults work for government benefits, right? I don't understand. Okay, you had these people, these liberals, Rick Wilson, these propagandists come out here and lie about what President Trump is doing. Trump is lowering the age of dependence across the board, right? And it's like, no, he's not doing that. Because if they explain what he's actually doing, then again, it's hard to disagree with it, right? It's hard to disagree with saying that, hey, yeah. If you want food stamps, you need to work, right? I don't think that should be controversial, right? If you are able to work, you should work. Okay, I just find it so fascinating how you have people out here that are boo-hoo-wide and crying because the government's saying, hey, you need to work in order to get benefits, right? You need to put something into the system in order to benefit from the system. You just can't sit around and have a bunch of kids and eat off of everybody else, which is exactly what's happening, okay? And I actually like some of the changes that the Trump administration is proposing when it comes to Section 8, okay? When it comes to SNAP. Another proposal I like comes from RFK, and you have some states already moving to implement this, which is to essentially ban the purchasing of sugary drinks and unhealthy foods, right, with SNAP, right, which I 100% agree with.
To encourage governors all over the country to follow the lead of Indiana and to file with Brooke Rollins, who's my partner in this, in MAHA, head of USDA. She is right now, at this very moment, in Arkansas with Governor Sarah Huckabee, announcing the application for SNAP waivers for sodas in that state. This is the first state that has added candy to the SNAP waivers. I'm very, very proud of you, Governor, for doing that. I look at Governor Braun as a really important partner in the MAHA movement, and a great leader, and I'm very, very grateful for you taking this very ambitious steps that you've taken today. And not only that, I'll say this, there's a couple of states that I've been to where we've announced SNAP waivers, but we haven't seen the SNAP waiver application yet.
Yeah, so another SNAP proposal that I 100% agree with. In fact, if I was running it, I would go even further, right? I would basically say, listen, you can't buy anything except Whole Foods, right, with SNAP, okay? Anything outside of Whole Foods, sorry, not eligible, right? You got to learn how to cook, okay? You got to learn how to actually cook your food, right? And if you don't want to do that, then get off the government, right? Get off government assistance if you don't want to do that, okay? We should not be allowing people to purchase a bunch of processed junk, okay, a bunch of sugary drinks, snacks, sodas, stuff like that with government money, because it's a big problem that continues to drive up costs in other areas, like, for example, healthcare, okay? When you talk about SNAP beneficiaries, 40% of them being obese, okay, that's an issue, okay? If you're on the system and you're more likely to be obese, then you're more likely to need more healthcare. And guess what? If you're on SNAP, then you're likely to be on Medicaid. And if you're on SNAP and Medicaid, think about all the benefits that that person is getting from the system, and you have the system essentially incentivizing the bad behavior, because again, they are allowing you to purchase these unhealthy foods. You get super fat, you get obese, you get health problems, and then you have to use Medicaid, right, in order to treat the health issues, right? That's the issue. I'm just saying, because I just personally believe that being on government benefits should be hard, right? It shouldn't be easy to be on government benefits, right? It should be one of those things where people are like, you know what? It's not worth it. Let me go get a job, right? I would rather have the freedom of being able to buy whatever I want to buy, okay, rather than to be on government assistance and not be able to buy what I want to buy. I also would crack down on food stamp fraud, right? So when people have unauthorized individuals go to the store and, buy stuff, selling their food stamps and stuff like that, yeah, I would crack down on that as well too, okay? I would have mandatory ID checks. I would make sure that there will be no abuse of the system. And yeah, I mean, just make it really, really, really hard to be on the system. And that way you incentivize people to get off of it, okay? The current problem with our welfare state is that we're not incentivizing people to get off the system, right? And especially considering how we have the Democrat Party, which, again, thrives on people being on the system, right, and not wanting people to get off the system, because that equals votes for them, right? This is why it's so hard to actually cut the budget, right? Because when you talk about cutting Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, even the military, right? I mean, those four things you really can't touch. You can't touch because we become so dependent on these things that any cuts, right, any major cuts to these programs at all is extremely controversial. And this is almost why our debt crisis is basically unsolvable at this point, because you can't cut these things without major backlash, right? But our government should not have gotten this big in the first place, right? Our government should not have gotten so big that people have become dependent on these programs, okay? That's the problem. So any efforts that we're going to put in order to remove that dependency, I think is a good thing. And if we can start with SNAP, okay, Section 8 housing, things of that nature, then hey, I think that that's a great thing. I don't understand why is it that work requirements are so controversial to Democrats. I don't understand why it's so controversial to liberals. If you are an able-bodied person, you should be working if you want health care. You should be working if you want housing. You should be working if you want food, okay? Throughout all of human history, humans have had to work to survive. So I'm not saying anything that's cruel, okay? But we've gotten to a point in our society where there's too many people saying, well, I can't do this and that because life is hard and such and such and such. Is like, well, life today is easier than it's ever been throughout all of human history, right? So I'm just saying that if you can't figure it out today, if you can't figure out how to live without being dependent on the government today, and you are able-bodied individual, especially if you are a young person, that is a you problem, right? You are the problem, okay? And we should not have the government come in and to save you from your bad choices, right? Because you chose to lay up and have 5, 6, 7, 8 kids, okay, and not be married, okay, not have a man in the house and stuff like that. Just because you made bad decisions, that doesn't mean that the government or taxpayers should be on the hook for your bad decisions. Just like taxpayers should be on the hook for the bad decisions of people who go out and take a bunch of student loan debt to go to college and get a useless degree, right? That is the issue with our current system, right? Our current system promotes dependency, right? And it does not incentivize people to get off of the system, right? Once you're on, you're incentivized to stay on because people are afraid of losing their benefits, aka handouts that are given to them from taxpayers who are actually working, who are doing what they got to do, who are making good decisions, right? Who are pulling their own, who are net contributors to the system, okay? We got way too many people living off the system, and that's a problem. It's a huge problem, and that's what's driving up our deficits. That's what's driving up our debts. And it's one of those things that we got to get it under control. But, I really don't have much faith that we will because, again, the backlash is just too great, right? I mean, again, look at what Republicans have to deal with right now just to make some changes to Medicaid. Only thing they're doing is that they're requiring that people work. They're making it harder for Democrats to put illegals on the system, okay, which has basically bankrupt California's system. And they're essentially pushing some of the financial requirements onto the states. And they can barely do that in Congress, right, without a bunch of backlash. So, again, this is currently where we're at. I just find it to be fascinating how so many people get upset when the government says, hey, you should work in order to receive taxpayer benefits. It's fascinating stuff. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.